Jenn and Sam in the morning!
Hey, good morning.
How's it going there?
I don't know if you can see, but the sun's out.
Yep, bright and sunny.
This time.
Today is a high of 30, a low of 22, and the current temperature is 29 degrees Celsius.
Current is 84 degrees Fahrenheit with a high of 88 and a low of 72. And this morning I heard on Captain Ron's weather report that he says every morning, but I just don't pay attention to it, that the humidity today is 85%.
And by the way, today is Sunday, August 19th, 2012, and the time is 10:23 a.m.
In the morning!
In the morning, that's right. We're doing a morning vlog. We have a lot to do today, and we're probably going to be out at the Crazy Run Azul this evening.
So I don't
the
know
restaurant
how motivated.
that's only open on Fridays and Sundays, and we only ever go on Sundays. So we figured we'd do an early vlog. Yeah. And we had so much to say about the Bocas Emergency Network.
This morning, there's an emergency.
There was, and we thought it was a little humorous maybe, that, people have been joking a little bit about the Bocas Net, because it starts off with, does anyone have any emergencies? And usually there's this joke of like, oh yeah, I'm going to wait all morning just to say my emergency then, and then that actually happened to the person that was joking about it the most. So today on the Bocas Emergency Network, the BEN, we heard
a call from a voice that was very familiar, and he reported having his panga, or his boat that he uses to get from his house to town, was stolen.
Yeah.
He's like, it's not where it was. There was an outboard motor tied up in 4 places. People were like, could it have drifted away? And he's like, nope. They're like, check the mangroves. And then, so he put out this call over the net, and he's like, if anyone has any information, please let me know.
And it was like an ongoing investigation that we could listen to and hear about on the net. And so then someone called in saying that they heard 3 people in a cayuco.
They saw it.
They saw someone towing the boat, but without the motor. And so what also happens is sometimes 2 radios are too far away to hear each other, so someone in the middle has to like patch them together.
Relay, that's what it's called. Will you relay?
Yeah, so we listened to that too. I got called in to see if I could help with my Spanish translation, but they have someone else, so
it's all covered.
I'm kind of like a backup. But yeah, we got to like listen to the like up-to-date information.
Yeah, people are like drawing resources and just seeing what the next action plan is, like congregating for information, all sorts of things, and we were just talking a lot about the network, the net this morning, and how
it's so cool to see it all come together and how it actually really works in these situations, like he put out the call and then someone remembered that they saw a boat that was kind of suspiciously being towed by another boat, and you saw the name of the boat and he remembered it. So I think it's just really neat to see the Bocas Emergency Network in action, because we use it for so many things of, listening to events and trivia and the weather and just kind of what's going on around, but also it's very, very useful and helpful.
Well, and another thing too is that I don't think that person would have, I don't know, I think there's a mentality of actually paying attention.
Yeah.
Because he said that it was actually his friend who saw it, and that he was on a tour, and he was at the edge of his marina, and he's like, oh, that's strange. Took a mental note of like, towing, blah, 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 blah. And whether there's an outboard motor or not, all these things that people sometimes don't think to pay attention to, and that information, sure enough, came in handy 24 hours later when he's like, yep.
And you met someone yesterday who was talking about the BEN.
Yes, indeed. Yep. So I was hanging out at the marina. Lori wanted to stop by and say hello to a friend of hers. They were not at their boat, but there were a couple people hanging out on the deck of their boats, and one of them was sitting there, and I can't remember in what context, but they mentioned the BEN, the Boca Emergency. No, not even that, the net. So the BEN is like emergency, so people have numbers, so like if there is an emergency, people can go BEN, like Ben 1, calling Ben 1. They don't necessarily need to know who that is, but it's like the person that's first in line to kind of respond to emergencies. But so there's a whole network that's always open, channel 6-8, for people are always listening. But then the net, the actual net is the morning show that has, the opportunities for communication.
It says, like, everyone check in. So if you're listening to the net, you're encouraged to say the name of your boat or the name of your house or your BEN number, and just say, kind of check in to say that you're listening. But there's more boats than people who check in, and like we don't check in. Our radio isn't very strong, and yeah, we don't check in. Yeah. But Jenn met someone who also didn't check in. Yeah. And why didn't they check in, Jenn?
Oh, they sat there. So Lori asked, do you check in? And they're like, no, don't check in. And so Lori, being the information gatherer that she is, she's like, well, why don't you check in? And they just shake their head, and she's like, pirates. Pirates are always listening.
And usually we would be like, that's crazy.
Whoa, what a paranoid, crazy broad.
But now, after being here for over a month, we know pirates actually exist.
Yeah.
And that's a fair reason. Yeah. That is not some, like, crazy reason. That is a fair enough reason. Like, we heard on the Bocas Net someone's boat being overtaken by pirates and them having to jump ship and swim ashore. Yep.
Granted,
it's a completely,
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't just happen willy-nilly, parked in marina, not all the time. But, of course, there's always concern of safety and theft and everything. But I just had a moment of, like, that's hilarious, because in any other context, people would be like, really?
Yeah.
But she's not a crazy paranoid lady. She's an experienced cruiser who listens to what happens. So.
Exactly.
So, of course, there's, I'm sure, variants of overprotection and everything. But I was like, wow, now I know. Pirates. Yeah, it is a concern.
Yeah. And, it's just really neat to be able to use the net. And I think we used it a lot more than we've been talking about on our vlogs. It's just a great way to connect with everybody and hear about things. And so you can go up a level. And so we are actually, like, listen in sometimes if we know it has to do with us or it has to do with our neighborhood. So that we can kind of know what's going on, because we know that we'll be asked next and we'll be, like, called upon next. So it's good to just keep informed.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, it's completely objectively, it seems unethical to listen in on conversations. But it's like the longer that we were here, the more we realized that that's pretty much common practice, that people do listen in, and essentially, like, if you don't want it known, don't put it on the radio. So, we have had instances of people communicating with us not on the radio, but also that it's just helpful for people to share information. So it's not like, I mean, I think people say up one more to kind of get their conversation to, like, whoever wants to hear it will hear it, instead of just being on the overall network of, like, even if you just have this on, you're going to hear, us talking about the weather or whatever. But, like, a couple days ago, yesterday, whenever Lori and I went over and I was wondering whether I should canoe or kayak back, we were talking about the weather, and Captain Ron had listened in on our conversation, and he, after our conversation, called Lori and was like, hey, just heard you, we're talking about this, wanted to let you know the storm system is doing this, here's a website you can go to. So anyway, it's, like, definitely
a helpful place.
Yeah.
So people are listening to be helpful, to keep informed.
Exactly.
Not just to eavesdrop, because like, it's really boring if you listen to someone's conversation that you know nothing about, but it's very informative if you listen to the people in your own bay or the people that you know, because we're all kind of aware of what the other one's doing. I think it's just really good for safety to know kind of where everyone is that's in your little circle. So we have, a few boats in our bay and a couple neighbors really close by. So it's just, it's a good way to keep informed about the neighborhood for safety and for fun events.
Or we're just legitimizing our
our eavesdropping.
Our unethical.
Well, but also listening in, that means that the person doesn't have to say it like 5 times. It's like, yes, we heard that conversation.
Did you hear that? Great. Moving on. So, anyway. Yeah, but so back to this morning.
Be mentioned.
Exactly. But so back to this morning, so it's like a mystery in the midst of being solved.
They are on their boat right now with the dog, the ferocious Kima, and they're going to find out, take some photos, see what happens.
Yep.
We'll keep you
posted.
Keep you apprised of the situation.
That's right. So,
yeah. I guess that's it. Jungle love.
Until tomorrow.
This just in. Beep, 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 beep.